All right, on your desk, you've got 3 different graphs. 3, 1, 2, 3. 3 different graphs. Cassidy, what did you say for the first one? You were just starting it? Okay. Anyone else do it? Give you more time? Okay, no problem.
I think I did it.
All right, let's go over these now. Okay, Cassidy, what did you say for the first one now? Okay, so you see the most number of extinct species, right, after, or from the 1900s to 2100. So the number of species that are going extinct is increasing, right? Number 2, Elvira, what did you get? What did you say for this? Okay, so as the human population is increasing, the number of extinctions is increasing as well. And the last one, Autumn, what did you get for that one? Just look at the graph. Tell me what you see on the back. Yep, so amphibians have the most number of threatened species. What? Yep. Okay, so amphibians have the greatest number of species that are endangered. Anyone have any idea of why that might be? They grow up in the water, right? So there could be water pollution. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a minute when we talk about range of tolerance. All right, shh, quiet down. Here's our plan. Okay, we will be having, on Wednesday, we're going to be making endangered species ornaments. If you're not going to be here, you need to do it yourself and bring it to me on Monday of the following week.
Raise your hand.
Okay? You.
Be honest. Be honest.
So I'll give it to you Tuesday. Okay? So that's tomorrow. If there is anything you would like to bring in, I have a whole bunch of craft supplies, glitter. I'm anticipating us just making like paper ornaments. If you want to bring in a regular like ball ornament and decorate that, I've seen people do that as well. You can bring in any supplies you want. Sure. Can you what? If you want to, sure.
We should make this a best grade.
Wait, are we doing endangered or extinct?
Endangered species. So I'll pass the sheet around where you can pick your endangered species. I don't know where the sheet is, so I'm going to have to find that. All right, what I need you to do, I need you to get out your notes. Get out your notes. All right.
Feels like a Friday.
So here's what we have. How do new species form? We've been talking about evolution. Okay? So this should be something that sounds familiar from bio, hopefully. So there's 2 phases to speciation, meaning 2 ways that new species form. We have geographic isolation. So typically what happens here is 2 organisms or 2 populations of organisms are separated. Once they are separated, they end up accumulating differences. And as those differences accumulate, they eventually are no longer able to breed or mate together. So over here, it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but you see mouse population, they're white and brown, they get separated. There's white and brown on both sides of the river. Eventually, over time, maybe this environment has more dirt, and I don't know what this environment has, but they would, natural selection would play on to those mouse populations. This one gets more brown individuals over time because for whatever reason, they're surviving better in their environment. This one gets more white individuals. Now, it's important to remember that these mice are not turning from brown to white, okay? It's just that the brown mice on one side are getting eaten and the white mice are surviving, and on the other side, the opposite is happening. Eventually, this typically leads to reproductive isolation. So reproductive isolation is typically the second part, although it can happen without geographic isolation. So over time, populations become so different, they're no longer able to mate. This is also called sympatric speciation. So the prefix sym, as in like symbiosis, means both, together, same. So if they ask you about sympatric speciation, remember it's species that live in the same area. Sym means same. So they live in the same area. The reason they're different species is because they can't breed together. So even though they live in the same environment, they live close to each other, they're different species because they can't mate and reproduce. So this is how we get new species, which is, we're talking about evolution, we're talking about biodiversity, so the diversity of living organisms. And so as we get more species, right, we would get a higher degree of diversity. Okay, we're going to have this. All right, you have most of these written down. So how long does evolution take? It takes hundreds to millions of years. You have that written down. Species adapt, this is what you need to write down. Species adapt quickest when they have short generation times. Who can think of an animal that has a short generation time? Yeah, a fly, fruit fly, a mouse. Okay. I don't know how long a butterfly's lifespan is. Mosquitoes, they only live for like, what, 10 days, I think. So short generation times, and then lots of genetic variation. So the idea here is if I have a species that, let's say there's like a lot of change in the environment, but all of my species are clones, right? Well, they'll either all die or they'll all survive. They're not going to change at all. So if we have lots of different variations, they're going to change quite a bit or evolve. If we did the yarn lab outside, and I had all the same color yarn, it wouldn't make a difference, right? If I have 10 different colors of yarn, there's going to be a lot more change than if I even just have 2 or 1, okay? And then obviously the faster they can reproduce, the quicker that's going to happen. That's why we see a lot of evolution with the flu virus, because viruses have really short generation times. They reproduce really quickly, and that's why even though they give you the flu shot, a lot of times, like 50% of the time, it's not effective because that virus has already mutated and turned into a different flu virus, so the vaccine doesn't work on that new flu virus. So if populations can't adapt quickly, they go extinct, okay? And artificial selection, remember that's when we breed animals, right? So like breeding cows or crops or dogs, right? We get a golden doodle, right? We breed a golden retriever and a poodle. And then genetically modified organisms create rapid evolution. Why? Because humans are breeding the organisms together. All right, so when we talk about organisms, we talk about their niche. And you guys saw that on Friday. We talked about a niche. Has different things. Includes things like where they eat, what time do they eat. Where do they like to live? So the range of tolerance are the limits. What are the things that they can tolerate? For example, if humans go out into outer space, we can't really tolerate that unless we have, accommodations like a spacesuit. But for organisms here on Earth, what different limits can they survive in? If you take an orchid plant from the tropics and you bring it up here where there's snow, it's not going to survive because its range of tolerance doesn't include really extreme temperatures. So a lot of times you'll see a graph, right? And this is, they're surviving the most right here in the middle, okay? You get a couple random stragglers that might survive over here in really extreme temperatures or whatever, but typically they want that middle ground, okay? This is what we get when we get with amphibians. So with amphibians, they have a really small range of tolerance. The reason they have a small range of tolerance is because they actually absorb a lot of compounds through their skin. So they're able to actually breathe a little bit through their skin, and their skin absorbs some of the compounds in whatever liquid or environment they're in. So imagine you're a frog and you're in water pollution. You're absorbing those pollutants in through your skin. And so a lot of amphibians end up dying then because they're exposed. A lot of those toxins build up in their system. So we have different organisms that have different ranges of tolerance, okay? When we talk about niches, we have a big niche, right, big range that species can usually live in. So this is called a fundamental niche. So the full range of conditions under which a species can survive, grow, and reproduce. So if we look at this picture here, this picture is showing you barnacles, okay? So these barnacles, these orangish barnacles, can live in this deep ocean. They can live in the intertidal zone. Remember, that's the zone where the tide comes in and washes out. So sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's dry. That's their fundamental niche. But in the environment, they typically only live up by the high tide. The reason they only live up by high tide here is because there's competition from these other type of barnacles, which they colored them blue in this picture. So because of competition, typically you have they have a smaller area or smaller niche that they occupy. And now this niche doesn't have to be space. It could be food. It could be, times where they end up going and foraging for food. So it could be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be space. But a lot of times competition makes that niche smaller. So we call this a realized niche. Basically, it's the part of the niche that they're actually using. So fundamental niche, realized niche. A lot of times I like to draw this diagram just that the fundamental niche is bigger. The realized niche is going to be a smaller part of that. So it's going to be the conditions that they end up using that are typically it's smaller than the fundamental niche. All right, so one of the last things we're going to talk about here are there are different species then who have different size niches. So bigger niches, smaller niches. A niche generalist, okay, has a general niche. It's very broad. So it's able to thrive in a wide variety of conditions. Good example here, a raccoon. A raccoon can eat lots of different types of food. Okay, if one garbage dumpster goes away, he's not going to starve because he'll just find some other food or another garbage dumpster. Whereas a panda has a pretty small niche. Typically, a panda only eats bamboo. And so if that bamboo is gone, that panda's in trouble. Other generalist species could include like a rat. Rats don't really kill people. Anything on the bottom floor of the ocean. So he is also a niche generalist. So the opposite of a niche generalist would be a specialist. So you guys know a specialist is like somebody who specializes in something. So a niche specialist has a special niche, lives in a certain place, eats only a certain food, so has a narrow niche, can thrive in a narrow range of conditions, or has a limited diet. And because they only live in really small conditions, or really basically few locations, they're really prone to extinction. You'll also see, so a koala here, koalas eat eucalyptus. So they're an example. This is an orchid mantis up here. This guy, he is like a praying mantis. This is him. So he looks like a praying mantis kind of, but he resembles an orchid and he only feeds on orchids. Down here we have a species of hummingbird that can only feed on a specific type of flower. So these are all examples of niche specialists. However, even though I give you a bunch of examples, most of these don't end up fitting, you know, besides these animals, most animals don't end up fitting neatly into one group or another. They're typically somewhere in between. And they're not as extreme examples as these that I've shown you. So big ideas here, okay? Change in environment can change the distribution of species. Change happens all the time, okay? We've had an ice age, right? Here's pine trees. Right? There was an ice sheet, it started melting. This is 18,000, 12,000, 6,000, present day. And so the species distributions have changed. Spruce, same thing. Birch, same thing. We see that ice sheet melted. Well, species and their ranges and their niches are changing. It's normal for change to happen, okay? The problem right now is that a lot of this change is happening because of humans. So for the example here, this is the loblolly pine, the current distribution right here, and then what's predicted in 2100. So as you guys saw, climate change is forcing a lot of these species to move north. Okay, some of that is obviously human caused because it's climate change. So those are the big ideas. Now, when we look at extinction, so we have mass extinction. I'm going to put this graph up for a second. We have 5 major mass extinctions in Earth's history. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you guys have probably remembered out of like dino videos, right? The asteroid coming and hitting planet Earth and the dinos dying. Okay, that's like one of them. There's been 5 other ones. So mass extinction is any time a big number of species die in a short amount of time. Well, scientists actually think that we're part of an extinction right now, the 6th mass extinction. So you'll write this down. So they currently believe we're in the middle of a mass extinction. And it's different because humans are believed to be the cause of this mass extinction. Whereas the other times it was meteors or volcano eruptions or ice ages or whatever. And this time, rather than having it be some abiotic factor, it's a biotic factor. It's humans. It's us that's causing it. So mass extinctions, we'll see our extinction rate right now is not high enough to reach the mass extinction level, but it's getting there. It might not feel like we're in the middle of a mass extinction because, well, it's not like a big catastrophic event, but there are a lot of different species going extinct, and you guys saw that on the graphs in the warm-up. Okay, so summary here, you don't need to write this down, but biodiversity is a product of evolution. Remember, evolution is changing genes over time. Okay, microevolution is at the genetic level. Macroevolution is new species. Okay, and then we have extinction in species, or speciation leads to biodiversity. So here's what I would like you to do right now. I would like you to find a group. You can work by yourself, with one other person, or with a group of 3. You need a scratch sheet of paper. I would like you to, without using any phones, come up with as many different varieties of apples as you can. I need the names of those apples. Okay? Winning group gets a piece of candy. All right, so moral of the story here. Head back to your seats.
What? There's different seasons with different apples grow, and there's different, what's it called? There's different,
All right, so the main idea here, there are lots of different varieties of apples. Hey, quiet down.
I got it.
So you put your phone away, please. Phones away. All right, there are lots of different varieties of apples. Okay, the big idea though here is we can only typically list a handful. Okay, there used to be over 8,000 varieties. Now there are only 100. So why? We're going to talk about it. But basically, in the supermarkets, they're only interested in carrying certain varieties. Okay, varieties that consumers like the most, and the ones that are easy to grow. So there are a lot of varieties that get neglected. What if I asked you to name as many banana varieties as you could?
Wild
There's little
banana.
banana,
There's
big
wild
banana,
banana.
big
They have
banana.
the seeds.
green banana, purple banana, black banana, black banana, black banana,
So
orange banana.
there are over 1,000 types of bananas, okay? Most people can't even name one. Sure, you can tell me that there are yellow bananas in the supermarket, but do you know what kind they are?
This giant banana.
Doesn't it start with D?
It starts with a C. It's Cavendish, okay? So we have lots of different bananas. Here's some examples. I've eaten red bananas. I don't know. I ate some mini bananas, but I don't remember which kind they are.
I know what they're called. We had them in Costa Rica.
So different grocery stores actually carry some of these. I know Fresh Time has some. I know Meijer. I'll go see if they have some. You can try some if I have time. I'll bring some in. I brought some in last year for bio because we were talking about different types of crops. So the problem, hey guys,
Move on.
the problem here is that supermarkets and consumers get really good at producing one type because it's really easy to grow. They can mass produce it. All the others get neglected then. And so scientists and other people are really actually worried that we are going to run out of genetic diversity. We're going to run out of these breeds, and these varieties are going to go extinct because people are going to forget about them, they're not growing them, and over time, we'll basically forget about them. So what I want to show you is a video clip. This video clip shows a seed bank, okay? They have started saving seeds in a seed bank in order to prepare if there's some kind of catastrophe, okay? So I'm going to show you this if I can. All right, so the main ideas here are that genetic diversity is super important. Humans are altering the amount of genetic diversity that's present in different crops and different organisms. So what I'm going to do, we're just going to do the first 2 slides here. Don't let me forget to hand out your multiple choice because your multiple choice will be due on Monday. So this is going to be chapter 18 multiple choice. We're doing 2 chapters. You'll be looking at a test probably like before or Friday when we come back after break. I think I need one more. We're going to talk more about species, extinction, all that stuff. We're going to watch a video. I think we'll probably get to drawing on our desks for part of it. All right, put your name on this in case I find it and you lose it. We're experiencing declines in genetic diversity of wild and domesticated species. Domesticated just means we've tamed them, so things like crops or livestock. So human impact, hunting, habitat destruction has caused genetic diversity to decline in wild species. So you're filling in that blank with wild species. And then breeding has caused genetic diversity to decline in domesticated species. Did you guys get note packets? Okay. All right, so we looked and we saw that there are only 100 apple varieties. Okay, there are a lot more varieties of different crops than we usually know about. Out of the 200 breeds of domesticated animals, 80% are declining or extinct. Now, it's not because humans are destroying their habitat. It's just that humans only care about a certain types of cow or cattle, so they breed those, and the other ones end up dying out. So you can write these 2 bullet points, and then we can be done. So species diversity has declined around the world. 99% of the species that have existed on Earth have gone extinct. Now, this shouldn't alarm you. If you think back to all the dinosaurs, they've all gone extinct. Okay? It's change. It happens all the time. Species go extinct. That's normal. The thing scientists are worried about, though, is that all of the extinctions that are happening now are due to the fact that humans are causing them, okay? So humans cause these extinctions now. If I asked you, well, how many robins exist out in the wild? How are you going to go find that out? It's going to be hard, right? It's hard to count the number of species that exist, and we also don't know a lot of species. There's places we still haven't explored. People are finding new species in the rainforest, in the ocean, every single day. So there's a lot of species that are still unknown. So with that, I have your multiple choice.